بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا وإمامنا وحبيبنا أبي القاسم محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I praise Allah Almighty and I send prayers and blessings on Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his noble family, righteous companions, and all those that follow them with right guidance until the day of judgment. Ameen. Glory be to you, O Allah. No knowledge have we except that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are the all-knowing, the all-wise. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very nice to see you again. At least it's nice for me to see you again. But maybe not at such a late time. But what to do? This is the way things went. Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. But it's always good to visit you in Nottingham University. And even though it's this late, you made it to the venue, inshallah, to benefit something, maybe hear something that would benefit you or inspire you, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us. And when I was talking to the brothers, the organizers, we talked about the general topic, but then they mentioned this punchline, which is how to lead a successful university life. And I thought to myself, well, that's an ambitious title. You want to do that in half an hour? This probably needs a workshop. Furthermore, if we follow the transitive property of equality, for those of you who have taken mathematics or are taking mathematics, probably you did this at end of high school and not at the beginning of university. But the transitive property states that if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. So if the talk is about leading a successful university life, and I'm the speaker at the talk, so using the transitive property, this means that I had a successful university life. And while I do not have pretensions to such a dignified claim and such a distinction, but I think I may have had a relatively okay, decent university life, inshallah, whether that is academically or socially and in other ways as well. Having said that, let me get into the topic immediately, because we planned to be a lot earlier, honestly, but subhanallah, extenuating circumstances, really bad rain, you know how the monsoon season is in Malaysia. So, really one of the first pieces of advice to lead a successful university life, especially for people who are just starting, is that the enemy, the ultimate enemy of every college student is procrastination. And actually the enemy of every ambitious individual in general. You don't have to restrict it to university life. But procrastination is one of the biggest enemies, right? Always delaying things that you need to be doing earlier. Obviously, we've all done it, I included. I am no angel. I know what it feels like to have an all-nighter before the exam. Anybody pulled an all-nighter while in university? Raise their hand. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah. I didn't expect that many hands to go up. Subhanallah. It's not a very good sign, by the way. It's funny, but it's not a very good sign. You shouldn't have to pull an all-nighter. I can lecture you now, it's 20 years later, you know. I did my all-nighters 20 years back. If you are following things through, you shouldn't need an all-nighter, no matter what. Even if you want to, get an A+ or get the #1 grade, you shouldn't need an all-nighter. If you're doing all-nighters, or if you're doing a lot of them, how many have done more than one all-nighter? Raise their hand. Oh, still a lot of hands, subhanAllah. How many have done 2 all-nighters in a row? Oh, wow. So, sleep is non-existent in Nottingham or what? Is it just a harder university than others? I did a few all-nighters, but I can't even remember. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3, but the way hands are going up, it's like you have an all-nighter every week. What's going on, guys? If you follow things through, if you try to manage your time, you might be up late, but keep in mind, not getting a good night's rest is also very bad the day of the exam. You may think you're doing really well, but sometimes you're gonna find you're slow. You can't think through properly. Things are, A is becoming B and B is becoming C. Not getting a good night's sleep is bad news. And especially if you're a heavy sleeper, like myself. How many actually missed an exam? Okay, few. That's good, alhamdulillah. Because I missed an exam once. Because I was up late studying, and then, I didn't wake up for the alarm, and it turns out my roommate didn't wake up either. So we looked at each other, we're like, we missed the exam. He's like, IHOP? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. What to do? You missed the exam, go have a good breakfast. So, get a good night's sleep, okay? And if you want to get a good night's sleep, you want to do well on the exam, you need to follow things through. You need to manage your time. You need to plan accordingly for all your classes, all right? Try to put a system, try to put a schedule and follow it, all right? Try not to procrastinate as much as possible. Is there still some interference here? Is it okay? It's okay? Something's happening. How do you do that? Time management. There are workshops that adults attend on time management. So it's not only in university life. By the way, if you're able to master it now, it's a fairly good sign, inshallah, that you'll be able to do it in the future. It's very important, all right? Try to put a schedule for yourself. If you cannot put it, that's better, but if you cannot put a schedule and follow it religiously, so to speak, there needs to be some kind of planning. Otherwise, you're going to be all over the place, all right? You have a lot of classes, you have a lot of assignments, you have a lot of things you want to do. The other piece of advice that I want to give, and it's also based on our little 1 hour foray on the roads of Malaysia in the rain. Flexibility. You need to be flexible as well. You cannot be rigid. You have to adapt to the situations. In my case, when I first started, I wasn't planning on studying engineering. I was going to do what my parents expected. Didn't really push me to it, but kind of encouraged, subtly incentivized, we can say that. So I was going to be a doctor. I was going to study medicine. And then, here I am, about to start studying medicine, and then I see this one, sorry, let me just mention the nationality, Asian guy, right? But this is in the US, right? Not here. And this guy was being groomed to be a doctor since he's been like 15 years old, right? And here I am just entering the mix, trying to figure things out, and MCAT, and what do you need to do and where you need to go. And this guy has everything figured out, probably 2 years before he started university. I'm I'm like, no way, this is not gonna work. And usually if I'm gonna do something, I wanna try to do it properly, you know? So this was a big, I mean, he really put me down, you know, seeing how behind I was already, and that I wasn't gonna really like it in the first place, and it was gonna be a lot of studying. I'm not sure how many years here. Any doctors here? Is there medicine in Nottingham? No medicine, so don't worry about it. But over there, 4 years, General University, 4 years medicine, 5 years specialization. 13 years of my life in a major I'm not even sure I like that much. I say, forget it. So I had to change. Even though I had done 1 year thinking I was going to go to med school. Be flexible. How many people are freshmen here? Freshmen? Okay, so there are a few. How many freshmen here know what they want to study already? How many don't? It's okay, be honest. Nothing to be embarrassed about. Okay. That's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world if you don't know already what you want to study. It's a good thing if you do, and you can be like that Asian guy I was telling you about, who was going to be a doctor since he was 15. And he was doing pretty well, I think, for himself, and he was successful, he was getting good grades, and so on. So it's nice to know, but sometimes you don't. And sometimes, for some of us, you need to actually try it. Sometimes the major is not quite clear. Okay, what am I going to be doing if I study, what was that, Mariam, the science of studying dinosaurs? Paleontology, thank you. You don't know what paleontology entails until you actually try it, right? I doubt there are any paleontology majors, and maybe you don't have that in Nottingham in the first place. But if you don't know what it entails, you're not going to know until you actually try it. So I think for a lot of students, they don't actually know for sure what they want to do until the first year, or maybe even the end of the first year, and maybe even longer. Some students finish 4 years and they're like, nah, I'm not for accounting or business or something else. But by then, yeah, you're quite late. So try not to do that. Try to figure it out a little bit earlier. Having said that, a lot of people graduated after 4 years and did something completely different. I'm not talking about myself here, because I did work as an engineer for a while, for a long time actually, before I decided to kind of change course. But a lot of people do change course. A lot of people find out through the flexible approach that what they studied is already somewhat obsolete. Some people say a lot of what you're studying now is going to be obsolete in a few years. People are going to be talking about new majors. The other day I just heard about a new major. I had never heard of it before. Now it's called geo-business. I don't know if you've heard of that. So it's not business, it's geo-business, kind of like geopolitics and geo-whatever. So relating the business to the geography, to the location, I guess, something. New types of majors, new ideas, new branches. And if you've heard of something called disruptive change, if disruptive change comes about and comes and enters your field, your whole field may no longer be that important by the time you graduate. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to say, be flexible. See what the market requires. Maybe you're going to tweak, you're going to slightly tweak. You know, some of you are about to graduate electrical engineers, and then you realize, okay, I specialized in this, but you know what? This doesn't have the greatest future. I might need to do another 6 months, and then I'm going to specialize in something much more important. Go for it. What's 6 months relative to the 30 or 40 years that you're going to work in your field, right? Be flexible. Don't be rigid, okay? If you need to make a change, go for it. Maybe some of your parents will come after me after this lecture and say, what are you telling our children? No, sometimes you need to be flexible. If you're going to be rigid, a lot of rigid people don't make it. Sometimes you need to adapt. How many people have experienced that in their own lives? The need to be flexible, the need to adapt, the need to change. It may not be in your major, maybe in all sorts of other things. But being flexible is one of the keys to success. This is just based on our 1.5 hour ride coming here. But honestly, the first thing that we need to keep in our minds always is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are you studying to please Allah? How can I be studying to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What does this have to do with that? Sincerity and ikhlas. Is that only related to ibadah? Can it be related to studying as well? How? Any relationship? Or are we just studying to make a lot of money? To make a name for ourselves? Why are you studying? Because my parents sent me here. Is that why? Why are you studying, brothers and sisters? If you don't know, you might as well drop out. Yes? I see blank faces. What's going on? Why are you studying? Is it a difficult question? It's not a trick question, by the way. Why? You're finished, right? Almost. Why did you study? Because your dad sent you here?
Contribute to society.
Contribute to society. Very noble. MashaAllah. Alright. Not to yourself. Or to your bank account?
2 birds, 1 stone.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. What else? Are you doing it for yourself? Yes, I saw a hand there. Yes, brother. Gain knowledge. Textbook answer. MashaAllah. Good. Definitely. We're all here to gain knowledge. What else?
Get a job.
To get a job. Definitely. You'd be surprised. You might be able to get an excellent job. And not without a university education, but maybe with a 2-year education as opposed to 4. Everyone here is 4 years, right? Pretty much. 3?
British curriculum.
Right, British. Oh, British system. Fast forward everything, basically, or what?
Compressed.
That's great. 3 years and you're out. And America, they're telling us 13 years to become a doctor. Interestingly, one of the things I found out when I was on that path, on the path to becoming a doctor. So I was attending not a course or like a seminar on how to ace the MCAT, right? How to do well on this really daunting standardized exam. So, very interestingly, it turned out that through statistics they discovered that the ones who scored the highest on this exam that is preparing people for medicine were not biology or chemistry majors. Believe it or not. They were majors in, any guesses?
Engineering.
Nope.
Arts.
Closer.
Language.
English. English majors. What? What does that have to do with the MCAT, right? Just goes to show you that not everything is, as intuitive as it may be or it may seem. For some reason, they're the ones who used to score the highest. And it seems that the exam is not exactly preparing people in terms of their medical know-how or their knowledge of science or whatever it is, but it's the way of thinking. And in the end, that's what the university ultimately is giving you. Not just giving you knowledge. What % of the knowledge you gained here do you think you will use after you graduate? Any ideas? And I'm not trying to make you feel bad here.
10%.
10%? That's really low, brother. Anything else? 80%. That would be lovely. That would really make university feel important. But he's closer to the truth. About 10 to 15%. And I can vouch for that. We learn all kinds of crap. Because it's all theoretical, absolutely useless, never used again in my life. As an engineer. Okay? I hope it's different. I'm not sure if this university concentrates on theory or on hands-on. Theory. Alright, so a lot of the stuff you learn will be chucked out at the next job that you land. Alright? But having said that, it doesn't mean that you don't study or you don't concentrate. Because university is not only giving you tidbits of information that you're going to retain for life. But university is teaching you how to think, how to solve problems, how to implement the knowledge that you're gaining in real life. These are some of the things that you're getting from the university. Not everything you learned throughout your 3 years. Okay? So keep that in mind. But I went on a long tangent and I should come back to the issue of sincerity. Doing things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure. You can hit many birds with one stone. You can be studying to get a job, to please your parents, to make money, but try to make the ultimate goal to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves that we seek knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves that we excel at anything we do, no matter what it is. University, of course, absolutely. If it's something much less than that, do it as best as possible. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves that if any of you do anything, that they do it and they excel at it. This is very important. And this value is largely absent, unfortunately, from a lot of Muslims, I'm going to say. Because we're talking about it now as a Muslim value, even though it's a universal value, or it should be one. But now we're talking about it as a religious value, as a religious ideal, as something the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. And yet, we're not able to do it. In the smallest thing, do it right. Try to do it perfectly. Be a perfectionist if you can. Excelling at what we do. And not least, of course, something as important and expensive as a university education. Gaining that knowledge, to become knowledgeable, to do well for myself, to do well for society, for the ummah at large. This lofty goal you can make for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the akhirah. Not just for yourself. If you're just doing it for yourself, you're not going to be rewarded as such. And you know better, and no one else knows what's in your heart. Are you doing this only to get a job? Or for your name to be mentioned? Or something of that nature? Or you're able to tie it into some kind of a holistic, comprehensive goal. And that is not easy. So when we talk about correcting intention, we usually talk about it in the narrower sense of ibadah, of worship, right? Correcting your intention in giving such a talk. Correcting your intention when you are praying. Correcting your intention when you are giving charity, and so on and so forth. But now, we're talking about a more general correction of intention. And that has to do more with the purpose for which you are here in the first place. And that takes introspection. And what better time for such introspection than here in university, especially if you're a new student. Introspection here means looking deep down inside yourself. Why am I doing this? Why am I here in the first place? Why do I move and do whatever I do on a daily basis? Do I have the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in mind? Do I have the idea that I want to do something in order to somehow support the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just for myself or for Allah to be pleased with me, but I want to benefit the ummah. We don't have this kind of thinking to a large extent, unfortunately. So most people are still going after the majors that make the most money. Even though, if we were to look at it on a more collective basis, you will find that the ummah, there are many majors that are absent in the ummah and fields that are absent that the ummah critically needs more than the typical engineering, medicine, or business. But that takes a lot. That takes courage, that takes ikhlas, that takes dedication to try to say, you know what, there's a gap in this, and I want to fill that gap. Even though I may not be recognized, it might be difficult to go with right now, but this is something that we need to introduce. Unfortunately, this is a little bit difficult because most of the time it's happening on an individual basis. Everyone's just going after what they think is best for their own future. But if there was some kind of some kind of group decision making, maybe even at the level of a certain ministry or something, they would realize that, okay, this field has a lot of gaps. We need a lot of people in this field. So they start to try to encourage and give incentives for people to fill that field. But always remember, like we said, sincerity. Overall sincerity. Why am I here? I'm here because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put me here and I want to do something right. I want to do something to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and obviously that will be beneficial for me as well. When you are choosing what you want, are you choosing what you're good at, or are you choosing what you love to do? And that's not a rhetorical question. Yes. Are you choosing it because you're good at it, or because you love it? Or maybe there's a third option that I didn't think of. Yes, brother. What?
Neither.
Neither. Very good. What, then why? Why did you choose it? Parents, huh?
Practicality.
It's practical. Okay, so you have a practical man. Pragmatism, right? He's pragmatic. Are you successful?
Subjective.
Subjective. Uh-huh. So who's going to decide? Okay, so he is a person who has taken pragmatism to the max. Whether I like it or not, whether I'm good at it or not, this is what is, what's required now, what's in demand, so I'll go for it. I don't think there are many of those. Why are you doing what you're doing? Do you like it? You're good at it? Your parents forced you? You have no idea? Yes, brother?
Why can't you like it and be good at it?
Okay, nice. Why can't you like it and be good at it? And a lot of the times that's the case, right? Okay, what else? What if it's not? It's really great when it is, right? Yani Allah is pleased with you when that happens and they come together. But what if they don't? Which do you choose? How many are in the process of choosing their major now? They're still vacillating and they're not sure. Don't be shy. Raise your hand.
I think in the British curriculum, you just go directly into your major.
You're kidding. When do you decide?
So, unless you do
I need to learn more about the British system.
So your undergraduate, you go directly into your major, unless you do a foundation, which most people don't.
Who decided the major?
They decide. It's
They
like
decided for
you
you?
predetermine it before.
How?
No, the people getting into it predetermined right after high school.
Okay.
They decide.
What forces you? You have to choose then?
Yeah.
They force you to choose? Is that the case? Really?
So you do A levels and then you go directly into your course.
That's why it's 3 years.
That's why it's 3 years.
Uh-huh. So nobody's in doubt now. Nobody's going through this situation I went through, huh? Subhanallah. Do you think that's a good thing? Is that a good system?
No.
It's not? Why not?
People change their minds a lot.
Yes, brother.
You basically said that what if you like something, but you're not.
No, can you just tell me, what do you think about this system? Where they're essentially forcing you to choose early on. And you can't change afterwards? What if you want to change?
You can, but you have to restart the entire thing.
The entire process. British. Yes, brother. What did you want to say? So is this a good system? How many think it's a good system? Raise your hand. Wow. And yet you're attending a university, a British. Huh. If you don't think it's so good, go to the American one. Right? Why isn't it good, sisters? Why isn't it good? Yeah, sister. Seems like you wanted to say something.
Sometimes it's difficult to decide right after high school.
Right. It's difficult to decide. You don't really have an idea. Once you get into the university, you start attending some of the classes, going into the labs, that type of thing, attending some seminars that talk more about, what a major in that field entails and so on. Then you start to have a better idea. I'm kind of inclined towards that opinion as well. What else? Why is it not such a good system?
I think there's a lot of lack of work experience. You choose right after A levels. So people are nice.
Didn't even try it, and they're young also. Interesting.
No flexibility.
No flexibility. It's a problem. This seems remarkably similar to some systems in the Arab world, where not only do you not choose, or not only do you have to choose and you cannot change it later, you don't choose in the first place. It's based on your grades. So the people with the highest grades, become doctors and engineers and what have you. Lower, they go into something else, maybe into the arts or human sciences, and then the lowest, whatever it is. So that's even worse. And the problem there is, as we are saying, usually, brother, if you don't like it, there's a good chance you're not going to be good at it. Do you agree? Yes. So being forced into something you don't like to do, a lot of times may mean that you're not going to be good at it. If you're good at something initially, you can learn to like it. Yeah, I believe that. But somehow being forced into something that you don't really like, big problem. And this is why I think parents have realized over the years they cannot force their children into studying things that they want or that they feel are good for their futures. Okay? Usually it turns out to be a big failure, okay? Because the student doesn't like it, they don't do well, right? Can you learn to like it? Not everyone can. Some people can, Okay, like the brother said, this is what the market requires. I'll teach myself to like it. Not everyone can do that, okay? It's a little bit more difficult. And I just may not be good at it. But on the other hand, a lot of people are going after what they like, even though it may not be the best thing to do in terms of a career. And that can also be difficult. So you may be excellent at something and you want to pursue it as a career. But how career plausible is it? That can also be problematic. I've met a lot of people who are excellent at something and are starting to go on that path. If you are one of those, be cautious. Don't leave everything and then put all of your eggs in that one basket for that new path that you're going to tread. Because it may not be realistic for a career. You may do it on the side. Smart people will try to do it on the side for a while and then see if it's gonna work out and be successful as a career. And I'm not talking about myself right now. Okay? But this is the right way to do it. Don't just throw your university education because you realize you're excellent in, I don't know, maybe computer design, but you're studying business and you figured, you know what, I'm just going to start some kind of a computer design business or something like that and forget my university education. No, continue. Continue your education, finish your education, have that degree in your hand, that strength in itself, and then try to do what you love, what you feel you're a genius and a pioneer at, right? Do it that way. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Brothers and sisters, especially for the freshmen, please realize that this is a very unique phase in your life. And the university phase is a very unique one. And unfortunately or fortunately, it usually cannot be repeated or transcribed. So it's really this one opportunity, all right? Unless you continue for graduate studies, and not everyone's going to continue for graduate studies. What you find in university now, the atmosphere of university, you might not find anywhere else in your life. Not in your family life, not in your career or your job. It's really a unique opportunity. Therefore, try to benefit from it to the furthest extent. Don't waste time and make it beneficial in every way. Academically, socially, religiously, you name it. Because once you go out into the real world, things are quite different. And a lot of people even had a feeling of disappointment afterwards. Okay? And even hoped to go back into that academic atmosphere, academic university life. There are so many things that you can do in university that you cannot do afterwards. I'm not saying this only because I want you to be active in the Muslim Student Association, even though that is a huge plus that you may not find any other time, except in university. The opportunity to be active, okay, Islamically, in the da'wah, in the deen, in gaining knowledge, okay? All of these things may be a little bit more difficult later on. I'm not saying it's impossible. Of course, there are avenues for those who want to do it. But while in university, it's special. It's completely different, okay? For a lot of us, the beginning on the road to a deeper religiosity and observance of Islam happened in university. I can tell you from my own experience, I was traditionally religious, as a youngster, praying and fasting and so on. But that was about it. So nothing more in terms of gaining knowledge or reading and da'wah and all of that. That wasn't even on the radar completely. It was in university when it all began. Interestingly, I got to know some of the brothers. I don't know if you've heard this story, Jamal, before. So brother comes and says, brother, can you give khutbah next week? Because you're going to do the khutbah in the university. There's no nearby masjid. So I'm like, what? Give khutbah? I don't give khutbah. So why are you asking me? Right? I've never even given like a public speech and definitely not a religious one or a khutbah. And I'm used to, a certain type of personality doing that, especially in Kuwait, the sheikh. So I said, no way, forget it. And besides, I don't have any real knowledge to stand up and preach. I'm ignorant. So he said, but the rest of us are more ignorant than you. Okay, if you put it that way, then you convinced me, So that was the beginning, and the rest is history. That was the start in university. I can say that around that time, this is when I started becoming more religious, but that atmosphere that the university furnished was a big plus and a big help. That's why I'm saying, make use of your time in university to the best of your ability. Especially in terms of Islamic activism, because it's easiest here. You have friends, you have brothers and sisters, you have roommates, you have pals who can help you. It's a pretty open environment. You don't necessarily have to have credentials. If you do have credentials, that's great. But if you don't, just be active. Get active. Get into that mode of always doing something for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is something that you will never regret. And this is something, inshallah, that will continue after the university if you started in the university. But for a lot of people, if they didn't utilize that opportunity in the university, later on it becomes a lot more difficult. And you get preoccupied with your job, and your family, and your children, and all of these things. Do not squander this golden opportunity. Furthermore, while in the university, you can also do a lot of other beneficial things. You can start to build your network from now. Building a network with other intellectuals like yourself. Building a network with your professors. Even though maybe a lot of people find that a little bit difficult or scary. Students like to stay with the students. The professors are different, as if they're a different breed. But believe it or not, one of the biggest mistakes of university students is not networking and communicating and opening up to their professors. If you really want to succeed while in university, you need to open up that channel with your professors. If you cannot do so publicly, they have office hours. Tell me the British system doesn't have office hours? They have office hours, right? Good. Alhamdulillah. They have office hours. Go and visit them. Talk to them. Benefit from their knowledge, from their experience. Maybe you can get feedback from them about your achievements or your performance. How many people have visited their professors in their offices? Raise your hand. Don't be shy. Okay, so Not just to hand over or submit the assignment. When to see them, to speak to them, to talk to them, this is very important. The kinds of activities that go on in the university rarely happen anywhere else. Yes, you can hear talks and lectures later on, but some of the specialized seminars, the workshops, the debates, that atmosphere, a lot of times you will not find anywhere else, especially if it's a decent university that understands and respects its responsibility as an academic institution that is not just there to preach to the choir or just to keep regurgitating the same information, but really makes it interesting, right? And you start to really broaden your horizons, open up your mind to things you may not have seen and experienced before. What time is it now? My brothers and sisters, a lot of, I'll conclude soon, it's getting late. A lot of people think that when they go to the university, it's basically their chance to break free. You know, they're the canary that just flew out of the cage. And now everything is game. You're sadly mistaken, my dear brother or sister, if you think that. Please do not think in that way. While it's true that your life will never be the same, you're now going and setting your foot on a path that is completely new, completely yours, and a future that you are going to build on your own without anyone else's, well, kind of with someone else's assistance. Your parents, may Allah bless them, I'm sure are paying for your education unless you have a full scholarship. I don't know if they have full scholarships. So your parents are paying a lot of money to see you do well. So not only are you here to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to do something good for yourself, for your future, but also at least to pay back some of the dues to your parents for sending you to such a respectable institution. So this is not the time to just play around, have fun, enjoy oneself, and forget about everything else. Or God forbid, this is just on the level of halal. Definitely not the time to do things which are prohibited or haram, al-'iyadu billah. This is a surefire way to failure in university, not success. Whatever things we learned from our parents and being raised in a family, all of these things and everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands or prohibits in His deen is done for our benefit and our benefit alone. It doesn't benefit Allah one iota if you fast or not. He could care less if you fast or not. It's for you. Obviously, He loves that you obey. But this is for you. You're doing it for yourself. You're not benefiting Allah when you are obedient. And you're not harming Him in the slightest way if you are disobedient. As Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, when he said, if the whole earth, if all of humanity were to become believers and pious, obedient worshippers, it would not add to Allah's dominion or magnificence one way or another. And the opposite is true. If all of the dunya become disbelievers and disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it means nothing. It detracts nothing from Allah's dominion or magnificence. It's for us. Allah only commands and prohibits for our own good. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only wants good for us. So, you feel that kind of freedom because now you're on your own, but sometimes it can also be daunting. I think a lot of us felt that, especially if you're very far away from your parents. I don't know how many of you are here from far away. I went, halfway across the world. So it was a real eye-opener, time for introspection, time to rediscover yourself. When I was talking about religiosity and increasing religiosity, a lot of people had that same experience in university. Why? Because of that introspection. Because it was a time where they were looking deeper into themselves, who they are, what they want. So try to connect to those roots. Don't sever those connections. You're on your own, yes. You left the nest, yes. But don't sever that connection. You can never sever that connection. Your parents are still paying for you. For all practical purposes, they have a noose around your neck, right? And ultimately, whether you go to Nottingham or whether you go to University on Mars, Allah is always there. And Allah sees all and hears all. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be on the best path. And for that, I tell the brothers and the sisters who have been here already for a while, it's your duty and your responsibility to look after the freshmen. Whether the freshmen agree or not, that's a different story. But it's your duty to look after. You should be inviting. You should be, bringing them into your family. One of the most important factors for success in life, and obviously in university as well, because of all of the social interaction that occurs, is who are your friends and who do you spend time with. The Prophet ﷺ said, الرَّجُلُ عَلَى دِينِ خَلِيلِهِ. Each person's religiosity is commensurate with the religiosity of their friends. In other words, tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. That's how it is. In rare cases, you are such a luminary that you are able to positively influence those negative influences. That happens, but it's kind of rare. It's usually the other way around. Those negative people, those people who do not want your success, they just tell you come and have fun and do something, God forbid, that displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but in the end, that's going to lead to your doom or your failure. The ones who really want what's best for you are your good friends. And believe me, everything has the power of pulling you in. And the shaitan works on students in this phase because of this change where you have left your homes and now you are on your own. So the shaitan works harder. So it's very important to keep a good network of friends. Stick together. Otherwise you're going to be like a lone sheep. But if you're all together, you strengthen each other. And this is why I really admired one of the things that some of the students used to do in my university, whereby they would be like magnets looking out for all of the new students, all of the new freshmen coming in, especially Muslims, okay? So they would just go after them immediately. Come. They would immediately furnish what? An environment for them, a network, a good environment. where they can flourish, where they can strengthen each other. If someone gets weak, they're all there to help each other out. And this is what they did. So anytime a new freshman would come in, come, join us. They were living together. Not join us, for a cup of tea. No, come and live with us. They would actually bring them. They started having several apartments, all in the same condo, so that they can all be together and stick together. Believe me, in such situations, if you don't have that environment, you're a lone sheep. And in that case, the shaitan can just play ping pong with you, throw you around. Be with the good people, the people who increase you in iman, who help you, who want what's good for you, not only in this dunya but also in the akhirah. Not the people who are coming and just want you to have a some quick enjoyment, whether it is haram or halal. One of the interesting stories that happened to me, another Muslim brother that I got to know over there, but unfortunately not very practicing. So, of course, we're in the US and it's university. So, everybody's drinking, wal-iyadu billah. May Allah protect us. There's no drinking here, right? Is there? There is? Oh, subhanAllah. There's a bar on campus? Not on campus. Opposite, okay. So it's a dry campus at least? Oh, that's good. So, but somehow, but in the dorms and in the apartments, yeah, of course, it was normal. So, one day, and obviously, all of my roommates are the same, but there was this one Muslim guy, and I learned that he was Muslim later on. And then I started talking to him and things. And then I noticed that he was drinking. May Allah forgive us and him. I don't know if he's still around. So I used to advise him, brother, this is haram, this is that, this is. And he was just like, no, I have self-control. I have self-discipline. I'm like, oh, that's great. Just, one glass or one can or whatever it is, right? Discipline and self-control. I told him, even that is not allowed in Islam and you're a Muslim. I tried everything I could do to inspire him and to encourage him. He said, no, I never go. One cup, that's it. Nothing else, just socially. And that's all. I said, okay. But be careful. I don't know how long that will last. So one fine day, on the weekend, I see him. Yeah, brother, where are you going? Oh, we're going to go get hammered. Hammered means they're going to go and they're going to drink until they drop. Like, hammered? What are you talking about? What happened to self-discipline and just one and this and that? He had a one-word answer. Can you guess what? You'll never guess. He's like, dude. In other words, what self-discipline, what one this, one that. That's the way the shaitan works. One step at a time. And then eventually you find, it's kind of like swimming in an ocean with waves and currents. You start here, you start swimming, you think you're swimming straight, and then after half an hour you find that you are some half a kilometer to the east or to the west. That's the way it is. You start to take those small steps, following the steps of the shaitan, and then you find you're very far away from where you used to be, from where your parents raised you, from the principles that they taught you all of this time, trying to protect you and give you the best in this life and in the next. So with that, let me conclude. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah protect you all and bless you and make you successful and happy in this dunya and in the next, inshallah.